Welcome again to another episode of the Washington SXM podcast. As always, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to click that bell to get notified whenever I drop a video. So let's get into this. Chinese turn the desert, the Gomtag, Jiangsu province desert into a fish farm and oasis where they do rice, tomatoes, grapes, and a fish farm. A desert people. Let's get into it and see how they get it done.
China wants to develop aquaculture in the desert. It will take $720 million to complete it. The plan sounds unlikely to materialize. The desert is known as a forbidden area for life. In summer, the temperature is usually between 45 degrees Celsius and 70 degrees Celsius. Most fish are afraid of high temperature. High temperature will reduce the oxygen content in the water and cause the fish to suffocate to death. However, China has created a
Stick up in. I've seen that personally. Here in the Caribbean, we have this big pond, and whenever time the water level drops, you see thousands of fish die and just float, and the whole place has a smell because the level of the oxygen drop because of the so we have to pump back water into it. Sometimes they do it later, the pump break, so that's what causes them to die. So I've seen it when it does. Thousands of fish just floating.
Miracle in the desert this time. Not only has the aquaculture industry been developed very well, but at the same time it has turned the dry desert into an oasis and the most distinctive tourist attraction in the area.
Look at that, a desert.
So, how did China succeed?
Let's go. Here.
China is currently the country with the most desert areas in the
desert.
world, but it is also the country with the most successful desert governance. It took hundreds of thousands of people in China, and it took 50 years to transform a large desert from a once uninhabited forbidden area to a desert area, a lush oasis. According to data records, China has successfully managed more than 8,000 square kilometers of desert areas. At the same time, they are still vigorously developing agriculture and animal husbandry in the desert, planting rice and grazing a large number of cattle and sheep in the desert. The success of desert control has largely solved the problem, affected the livelihoods of millions of pastoralists near the desert. Of course, China can do more than that in the desert. In 2006, China announced that it would develop fish farming in the desert. The location was chosen in a desert in Gansu. This desert is extremely arid, full of yellow sand all year round and inaccessible. You can't imagine how hard this project is? In fact, how many times China has experienced failures in this project? In 2007, China first transformed 1,200 mu of desert into a breeding base, and then transported water from villages near the desert into the desert. This is undoubtedly a very time-consuming and cost-consuming task. A lot of money must be spent on road construction. The problem of water resources was solved. In the first experiment, they believed that tilapia was a fish with strong vitality, but in the end, due to the high temperature in the desert and lack of experience in raising fish in the desert, 30,000 fry were raised for the first time.
That's a lot.
All died, and China's first desert breeding failed, directly losing.
Stick up in. You see that? They first tried, and all the fish died because they didn't get the right formula yet. But that's the thing with Chinese people. They are very persistent. And if it take them 100 years to do something, they will do it. Look, it take them 50 years to transform this desert into an oasis. And I hear it's a tourist, right now it's a tourist attraction, present. But this is how dedicated the Chinese are and how good they are at drawing up a plan and stick to it. And whether they feel or not, they go through it. Let's continue.
$20 million US.
20 mil.
After this failure,
Boom,
they began to look for the reasons and collected a lot of experience in desert fish farming technology from foreign countries. In fact, desert fish farming is nothing new in foreign countries, and many countries have already realized this project. For example, in Algeria, the annual production of aquaculture in the Sahara Desert reaches 100,000 tons, and desert aquaculture farms in Israel, the United States, Mexico, and the Middle East have also achieved good results. These countries also have rich experience in raising fish in the desert. In 2008, China decided to invite Algerian and Israeli experts to guide. Experts believe.
Stick up in. You see that? The Chinese fail. Lose 20 million in the desert. That's very hard. And then what they do, instead of giving up or get frustrated, what do? They go and seek out other people in other countries that that's done it successfully and bring them back to teach them how to do it. That's a lesson. That's the moral that's telling you that. The moral of the story right there. Try and you fail, go to someone who have tried it and been successful at it, and then learn from that person. Don't be afraid to learn from anybody. Never be afraid to try new things and to learn. If you don't know, get someone that knows and learn from them.
That the reason for China's previous failure was not only the lack of mature technology, but also the problem of fish fry and water resources. After hundreds of tests by experts, it is impossible for Chinese fish to survive in this desert for more than 10 days. Only the rare species of rainbow trout from abroad is the most suitable for this place. Rainbow trout is native to the Pacific Ocean in North America. Its meat is delicious. Its survival ability is extremely strong, and its value is much higher than that of tilapia. There is absolutely no problem in surviving in this desert. Experts also discovered that there is a glacier on the edge of the desert, which can divert water to the desert after the iceberg melts, creating a cold water fish industry belt, which solved the problem of China's original problem of transporting water from the desert. With the help of foreign experts, China's desert aquaculture industry has taken its first step towards success. They are developing aquaculture in the desert while building roads for the desert. In less than 2 years, the aquaculture has achieved obvious...
Stick up in. So you see that? They even build roads in the desert. You know how difficult it is to build roads on sand? You know the amount of dredging and digging you have to do to get solid ground or pillars, to plant pillars to build a road? That's extremely difficult. So the engineer who does that, you have to be very smart. So the Chinese are very ingenuity. Ingenuity is a Chinese thing.
Results with a profit of $20 million US. At the same time, they also led the villagers near the desert to develop the aquaculture industry.
So they provide jobs for people.
Since then, this desert has become a famous land of rainbow trout. Experts from the two countries expressed their admiration for China's learning ability and perseverance. In just a few years, they have developed the technology of raising fish in the desert to the fullest. In 2012, China's confidence increased greatly, and it decided to expand the industry of rainbow trout farming tenfold and introduced 600,000 fry. In order to obtain more water sources, they began to build bases and dig river channels. But what I didn't expect was that this year, there was a once-in-a-century flood in the desert. Where the flood went, the water diversion project, newly built diversion canals and fish ponds in the industrial park were all washed away, and 600,000 fish fry were swept away. This time China suffered heavy losses. Perhaps you will have a question. China has such a vast land area. Why must it choose to develop aquaculture in the desert?
Stick up in. So you see that even they lost 20 million, went, learn, get people, bring them back to teach them, get it successfully, make 20 million, expand 10 more farms, but no, another big loss again. So let's see where they go from here.
In fact, this is related to China's needs. China wants to realize the dream of the residents near the desert to have fish to eat every day. Secondly, with the global warming of the climate, the pollution of the marine environment and people's wanton fishing, the global fishery is declining, and all countries are looking for new aquaculture channels. The same is true in China. The overfishing problem in China's fishery is one of the reasons for the unsustainable development of fishery resources.
That's a global problem,
the annual catch in China's waters is about 9 million tons, but the actual annual catch is 13 million tons, exceeding million tons. China has a population of 1.4 billion, and the annual demand for seafood exceeds 65 million tons. Overfishing has caused China to face a shortage of fish, and it...
Stick up in, but China is not the only place that have overfishing and losing fish. Caribbean, Europe, the US, especially in the Caribbean, it's highly restricted when it comes to fishing, and different seasons for different types, for like kongs, for lobsters, for shrimp. It's seasonal. So if you get caught out of season catching anything you're not supposed to catch, prison time or a big heavy fine. The fine won't worth it, so people tend to not to do it. But it's a global issue with fishery, everything being overfished and because of the overpopulation. Well, not overpopulation, densely populated area.
Needs to import at least 100,000 tons of fish from foreign countries every year. Therefore, China can't wait to develop aquaculture. Fortunately, although the flood took away 600,000 fry, it also created a desert oasis. In this accident,
That's a plus.
China realized that if it wants to develop aquaculture in the desert, it must control sand at the same time.
That makes
Without a
sense.
good ecological environment, it is impossible to talk about any industry. The desert after the flood is wet, which is very suitable for planting trees. In order to resist the flood, they also built dikes in the desert. It took another 3 years to do this huge project, and the whole project cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Relying on the dike.
Sticker pins. They said that it took them 3 years without getting no return on the money. Hundreds of millions of dollars just to do the forest in the desert. The oasis, because the flood gave them opportunity. Even though it wash away the profit, it gives them opportunity to create a forest. Once you have a forest, you have more breathable air, you have algae, you have everything gets better when you have trees around. So that's a plus. So let's continue. But before we continue, 3 years of just spending. And let's continue.
Diverted water. Tens of thousands of acres of forests have been successfully saved, and the desert that has been filled with yellow sand for hundreds of years has now become a rare oasis in the desert. This time China divided the development of desert fish farming into 3 stages. First of all, the first stage is to build an open-air pond for fish farming. The second stage is to use a semi-closed circulation system to seal up water resources for fish farming. The third stage is to use engineered circulating water for fully enclosed fish farming. These are all high-tech achievements of aquaculture in Israel, and the core technology is water treatment. At present, China's desert fish farming technology has been successful. In 2020, in order to enable the long-term development of desert fish farms, China will combine fish farming and desert agriculture. Now, China is still able to raise fish while irrigating crops.
Pumpkin.
They grow potatoes in the
melons.
desert with an annual output of 2 tons.
Listen to that.
Vineyards and
Grapes.
various organic vegetables have been developed in the desert.
Damn.
In addition, they have also developed tourism in the desert, so that tourists from afar can enjoy the unique desert scenery
Shit.
while tasting the delicious fish.
No, that's dedication.
Since the development of tourism here, tens of thousands of tourists come here every year,
I didn't even
enjoy
know
the
this.
scenery here, and also participate in the desert control work here, which makes this desert.
Stick up in. They even make a beach. Look like they have a beach there. How many of y'all knew about this? The Chinese transforming a desert into an oasis, a fish farm / tourist destination and vegetation, growing fruits and vegetables in a forest. Not forest, in a desert, my bad. In a desert, people. How many of you knew about this project? What cost almost $1 billion to come to fruition? Millions of dollars in losses, but now they're reaping the profit. You see, dedication is key. When you're dedicated and you put your best foot forward, and even though you get setback, you don't stop, you don't quit, you don't complain, you don't bitch about it. You pull the pants up, you see what was done wrong, you do your studies, you do your research, and say, okay, let's do this way. Because you can't do the same thing over and over and expect the result. That's an oxymoron, basically. So I respect the Chinese for their work ethic, their preservation, and they're not afraid to fail, and they're not afraid to spend money as well. So I'm willing to include this ideology in our way of life and way of thinking to succeed. That's what I'm trying to do at the moment. Take some of those perseverance from the Chinese, the Jewish business model, and merge those 2 things, apply it in my life, so we can start to do the same thing as them. As you know, and try to teach others as well. So this is one of the purpose of my channel, to bring knowledge and unknown things to who don't know, to the masses and who's on my channel. So thanks to the subscribers. If you like the channel, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to leave a like. It helps with the algorithm. And follow me on this journey. We have more things to learn and more things to experience together. And you don't know what it is. It's the Washington SSM podcast. You don't know. Peace. One love. Boom.